The stars were cold and silent as the transport ship carried Ambassador toward the Galactic Council station. He sat alone in his cabin, looking out the window at the endless darkness. In just a few hours, he would stand before the most powerful beings in the universe. They would accuse him. They would accuse all of humanity, and he had to find a way to save his people. Was 53 years old. His hair had turned gray many years ago, and lines of worry marked his face. He had spent 30 years as a diplomat, traveling from world to world, making peace between angry nations. He had seen wars start and wars end. He had watched species rise and fall, but he had never faced anything like this. The council station appeared in the window. It was massive, bigger than any city had ever seen. It floated in the space between dead stars, a monument built by 100 different species over 10,000 years. Lights covered its surface like jewels. Ships from every corner of the galaxy flew around it like insects around a flame. Took a deep breath and stood up. It was time. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. The walls were covered with the symbols of every species that had ever joined the council, and the seats rose up like mountains on every side, filled with thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds. Walked to the speaking platform at the center of the hall. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Every eye in the room was watching him. Some of those eyes were friendly, most were not. High Counselor sat in the tallest chair, directly in front of the platform. He was one of the oldest species in the galaxy. His body was made of living silver that shifted and flowed like water. His eyes were 2 points of blue light that burned with cold intelligence. "Ambassador of Earth," High Counselor said. His voice filled the hall without any effort. "You have been called here to answer for the crimes of your species. Do you understand the charges against you?" Bowed his head slightly. "I understand that charges have been made, High Counselor. I do not understand why, because humanity has committed no crimes." A wave of angry noise moved through the hall. Representatives shouted and growled and hissed. The splashed in their water tanks. The thorns stomped their heavy feet. The bright ones flashed colors of anger and insult. From the shadows on the left side of the hall, a figure rose. He was tall and covered in dark scales. 4 yellow eyes glowed on his flat face. This was Grawl, voice of the Empire and the most dangerous politician in the galaxy. "No crimes," Grawl said. His voice was smooth and cold. "Ambassador, your species has been in space for only 200 years. In that time, you have expanded into 47 star systems. You have built military bases on the borders of peaceful nations. You have started wars that killed millions of innocent beings." "We have defended ourselves," said calmly, "nothing more." Grawl walked down from his seat and approached the speaking platform. He moved like a hunter approaching trapped prey. "Defended yourselves," he repeated. "Is that what you call the attack on our trade ships in the Outer Rim? Is that what you call the invasion of the colony world Thresh? Is that what you call the murder of 3,000 children?" The hall exploded with fury. Representatives screamed for justice. Some called for war. Some called for the complete destruction of Earth and every human in the galaxy. Stood still and waited. He had expected this. He had prepared for this, but knowing it would happen did not make it easier to experience. High Counselor raised his silver hand, and the hall slowly became quiet again. "Ambassador," he said, "the evidence against your species is significant. 47 different species have filed complaints against Earth in the past 20 years. 12 of those species no longer exist. The Council's investigators have confirmed that human forces were responsible for their destruction." "The investigators were wrong," said, "or they were lied to." "Are you accusing the Council of corruption?" Grawl asked quickly. "I am saying that someone has been working very hard to make humanity look guilty. Someone has been planning this for a long time, and I believe I know who." Graal's scales shifted color slightly. It was a sign of nervousness among though most other species did not know this, noticed it immediately. "These are serious accusations," High Counselor said. "Do you have evidence?" "I am gathering evidence now," replied. "I ask the Council for time to prepare a proper defense." Graal stepped forward quickly. "The Council has waited long enough. For 20 years, we have watched humanity spread across the galaxy like a disease. For 20 years, we have counted the dead. How many more must die before we take action?" Other representatives shouted their agreement. The noise built and built until the hall shook with the sound of 1,000 angry voices. High Counselor waited for silence. When it finally came, he spoke. "The Council will vote in 3 days. Ambassador, you have until then to prepare your defense. If you cannot prove humanity's innocence, this Council will take action to protect the galaxy from further human aggression." 3 days felt his heart sink. It was not enough time. It was nowhere near enough time. But he kept his face calm and his voice steady. "I understand, High Counselor. I will be ready." As he walked out of the Great Hall, his personal communicator buzzed. He looked at the screen and saw a message from someone he had not expected to hear from. "Commander of the Earthship Resolve." The message was short. "I found something. Station 7, come alone, tell no one." Read the message 3 times. Was not just a military commander. She was one of Earth's best intelligence officers. If she had found something important enough to risk sending this message, it could change everything. He changed direction and headed for the transport bay. Station 7 was far from here, at the edge of Council space. It would take hours to reach, but he had no choice. Behind him, the Great Hall was still buzzing with anger and hate. The representatives were already celebrating. They thought humanity was finished. They thought they had won. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Station 7 was the kind of place the galaxy had forgotten. It floated in the darkness between stars, far from any trade route or colony. 100 years ago, miners had built it to search for rare metals in the nearby asteroids. When the metals ran out, the miners left. Now the station was empty, cold, and dying. Perfect for hiding secrets. Small ship docked at the station's only working port. The airlock opened with a tired groan, and he stepped into a hallway filled with dust and shadows. The lights above him flickered weakly. The walls were covered with rust and old stains. The air smelled like forgotten years. Commander was waiting at the end of the hallway. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She wore the gray uniform of Earth's Space Navy, but it was wrinkled and dirty. Dark circles under her eyes told she had not slept in days. "Ambassador," she said, "thank you for coming. Your message said you found something important." "Not important, essential this way." She led him through the dead station. They passed empty rooms and broken machines. Water dripped from damaged pipes. Somewhere in the distance, metal creaked as the old structure struggled to hold itself together. Finally, they reached a small control room at the heart of the station. Screens covered every wall. A single chair sat in the center. Closed the door behind them and locked it. "What I am about to show you," she said, "could save humanity. It could also get us both killed." "Show me." Sat in the chair and began pressing buttons. The screens came alive, filling with images, documents, recordings, and data. "6 months ago," she began, "my ship was patrolling the border between human space and territory. We picked up a strange signal. It was heavily encrypted, but my communications officer spent 3 weeks breaking the code." She pressed another button, and a voice filled the room. It was speaking the language, but the computer translated it instantly. "Phase 3 is complete. The human colony on Thresh has been destroyed. Our agents planted weapons and uniforms at the scene. The Council investigators will find evidence blaming Earth." A second voice answered. "Excellent. Proceed to Phase 4. Attack the mining stations in Sector 9. Kill everyone. Leave human equipment behind. We must give the Council enough evidence to justify military action against Earth. Felt ice spread through his body. This is a recording of leaders. They are planning attacks and blaming them on us. Yes, but this is only the beginning. Pressed more buttons, more recordings played, more documents filled the screens, hours and hours of evidence stretching back 20 years. The truth was worse than had imagined. They had been afraid of humanity from the first moment of contact. Humans were too clever. They bred too fast. They expanded too quickly. They adapted to any environment. They refused to give up even when all hope was lost. The leaders had looked at humanity and seen a species that would one day rule the galaxy. They decided to destroy humans before that could happen. But they could not attack Earth directly. The other species in the Council would not allow it, so they created a different plan, a longer plan, a more evil plan. They would turn the entire galaxy against humanity. For 20 years, agents had attacked other species and left human weapons at the scene. They had destroyed colonies and blamed Earth. They had murdered millions of innocent beings and made it look like human crimes. They had bribed Council investigators to ignore the truth. They had spread lies through every news network in the galaxy. And it had worked. 47 species now wanted humanity destroyed. 12 species had been wiped out by others who believed the lies. The galaxy was ready to go to war against Earth because of crimes humanity had never committed. "This changes everything," whispered. "With this evidence, we can prove our innocence. We can show the Council what they have really done." "There is a problem," said. Her voice was heavy. "No, we have this evidence." Turned to look at her. "What?" "One of my officers. He sold us out 3 days ago. They paid him a fortune to tell them about our discovery. He is dead now. They killed him to keep him quiet, but the damage is done." "What are they doing about it?" Pulled up a star map on the main screen. Red dots appeared in a circle around a single blue dot at the center. The blue dot is Station 7. The red dots are warships, 23 of them. They have surrounded us completely. Stared at the map. His mind raced through the possibilities. None of them were good. They are going to destroy this station. Eventually. But first, they convinced High Counselor to give them permission to search this station for illegal weapons. They will arrive in 12 hours. Once they get here, they will kill us and destroy all the evidence. Yes. Sat down slowly. The weight of the situation pressed on his shoulders like a mountain. Everything they needed to save humanity was right here in this room. But 23 warships stood between them and the Council. Even if they could escape, they would never arrive in time for the vote. "What forces do we have?" he asked. "My ship, the Resolve. 1 cruiser, 300 crew, 12 fighter craft, standard weapons," shook her head. "Against 23 warships, we would last maybe 3 minutes. Can we send the evidence from here? A long-range transmission. They are jamming all communications. Nothing gets in or out." Silence filled the room. On the screens, the evidence continued to play. Proof of 20 years of lies and murder. The key to saving 8 billion human lives, and no way to deliver it. Closed his eyes and thought. There had to be a way. There was always a way. Humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters. They had climbed out of every hole and overcome every obstacle. They did not give up. They never gave up. His eyes opened. A small smile appeared on his face. "Commander, how many of your crew would be willing to die for humanity?" Did not hesitate, all of them. "Good, because I have a plan." He stood up and began to pace. "We cannot fight 23 warships. We cannot send messages through normal channels, so we will do something they will never expect." "What?" "We will surrender, and then we will escape." Stared at him. "That is impossible." "No, it is difficult. There is a difference." He stopped packing and looked at her with steady eyes. Listen carefully, Commander. This is what we are going to do. He talked for an hour. When he finished, was smiling too. It was a crazy plan. It might not work. Many people would probably die. But it was their only chance. And humans always took their chances. The warships moved through the darkness like sharks smelling blood. Their black hulls absorbed the light from distant stars. Their weapons were powered and ready to fire. Inside the lead ship, Admiral Grawl sat in his command chair and watched his prey. This was the moment he had waited for. 20 years of planning, 20 years of lies and murder and patience. And now, finally, humanity would be destroyed. The evidence against them would disappear. The Council would vote for war. Earth would burn. Grawl smiled. It was not a pleasant sight. Admiral, his second officer said suddenly, the human cruiser is moving. Grawl looked at the tactical display. The Earthship Resolve was leaving its position next to Station 7. It was not trying to run. There was no escape from 23 warships, but it was doing something strange. It was moving directly toward the fleet. What are they doing? Grawl asked. Unknown, sir. They are broadcasting a message on all channels. Let me hear it. A human voice filled the bridge. It was Commander speaking in a calm and clear tone. Fleet, this is Commander of the Earth vessel Resolve. We are surrendering. We will lower our shields and shut down our weapons. We ask only that you do not harm our crew. Ambassador has agreed to come aboard your flagship to discuss the terms of our surrender. Grawl could not believe his luck. The humans were giving up without a fight. They were going to hand over their ship, their crew, and their ambassador. This was better than he had ever hoped. Tell them we accept, he ordered, and prepare a security team. I want to meet this ambassador myself. 1 hour later, a small shuttle left the Resolve and flew toward Grawl's flagship. Soldiers met it at the docking bay. They searched Ambassador carefully, taking away his communicator and scanning his body for hidden weapons. They found nothing dangerous. Grawl was waiting in the main conference room. He sat at the head of a long metal table, surrounded by armed guards. When entered, Grawl pointed to a chair at the far end. Sit. Sat, his face showed nothing. His eyes were calm and steady. Ambassador, Grawl said, I must admit I am surprised. I thought humans never surrendered. I thought you always fought to the death. We prefer to live, replied. Dying for pride is foolish. Very wise, I respect that. Grawl leaned forward, his 4 eyes burning yellow. Now let us discuss business. Where is the evidence your commander stole from our communications? It is on Station 7, in the main control room. Your soldiers can collect it whenever you wish. Good, we will destroy it, of course. Of course. Grawl studied's face. The human was too calm, too relaxed. People who were about to die should be frightened. They should beg for mercy. But this human just sat there as if they were having a normal conversation. Something was wrong. You understand what happens now, Grawl said slowly. Tomorrow the Council will vote. They will declare humanity a threat to galactic peace. Then the combined fleets of 12 species will attack Earth. Your planet will burn. Your people will be scattered like dust. Your species will be erased from history. I understand, said. And you have nothing to say, no clever words, no final attempt to save your people. Smiled, it was a small smile, barely visible. Actually, Admiral, I do have something to say. Grawl felt a chill run through his scales. What? While we have been talking, Commander has been very busy, looked at his simple wristwatch. The security team had not taken it away. It was just a watch after all. In fact, I believe she is finishing the final step right about now. An alarm screamed through the ship. Red lights flashed across every surface. Grawl jumped to his feet. Report, he shouted. Admiral, a voice called from the bridge. The human cruiser, it just jumped to faster-than-light speed. It broke through the blockade. That is impossible. We had them completely surrounded. They launched all their fighters at once, sir. The fighters attacked our ships while the cruiser charged its jump drive. We destroyed the fighters, but the cruiser escaped before we could stop it. Grawl spun around to face. The human was still sitting calmly in his chair, still wearing that small smile. "You tricked me," Grawl said. "Yes. It does not matter. The resolve cannot reach the council in time. The vote is tomorrow. Even your fastest ships cannot travel that far in one day." "You are correct," agreed. "The resolve will not reach the council in time, but that is not where Commander is going." Grawl felt true fear for the first time in his life. Where is she going? The Galactic News Network. Their main broadcast station is only 2 hours away at maximum speed. Commander is carrying a complete copy of all the evidence. Right now, she is delivering it to the most watched news service in the galaxy. No. In about 3 hours, every being in the galaxy will see the truth. They will hear recordings of leaders planning attacks and blaming them on humanity. They will see documents proving 20 years of crimes. They will know that the murdered millions of innocent beings just to frame humanity for crimes we never committed. Grawl grabbed a weapon from one of his guards. He pointed it at its head. His hand was shaking with rage. "I will kill you for this." "You can," said. He did not move. He did not look afraid. "But it will not stop the broadcast. The evidence is already on its way. Nothing you do now will change what is about to happen." For a long moment, Grawl stood there with the weapon aimed at its head. His 4 eyes burned with hate. His scales turned dark with fury. Every part of him wanted to pull the trigger. But killing would accomplish nothing. The human had already won. Slowly, Grawl lowered the weapon. "This is not over," he said. "The Empire is powerful. We have allies. We will survive this." "Perhaps," said, "but you will never threaten humanity again." 3 hours later, the broadcast began. Every screen in the galaxy showed the evidence. Billions of beings watched the recordings of leaders confessing to their crimes. They saw the documents, the plans, the proof of 20 years of lies. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the representatives sat in stunned silence. Just yesterday, they had been ready to vote for humanity's destruction. Now they understood they had been completely fooled. Grawl stood on his ship and watched his empire collapse. Other vessels were already trying to flee. Many were being stopped by ships from other species. The carefully built plan of 20 years was falling apart in minutes. And somewhere in the darkness of space, 12 human fighter pilots floated in the cold emptiness. They had died so that their cruiser could escape. They had sacrificed their lives so that the truth could reach the galaxy. Their names would be remembered forever. In his cell on Grawl's ship, closed his eyes and thought of those 12 brave souls. They had given everything so that humanity could survive. He would make sure their sacrifice was not wasted. Tomorrow he would return to the council hall. Tomorrow there would be justice. But tonight he simply waited in the darkness and listened to an empire fall. The great hall of the Galactic Council had never seen a day like this. Every seat was filled. Every species had sent their most important leaders. The viewing galleries above were packed with observers from 1,000 different worlds. News cameras from every corner of the galaxy pointed at the speaking platform. They had all come to witness history. Ambassador stood at the center of the platform. He had been released from the ship that morning, after other council species demanded his freedom. Beside him stood Commander, wearing a fresh uniform and new medals on her chest. Behind them, in special seats of honor, sat the families of the 12 pilots who had died in the escape from Station 7. The section of the hall was empty. Their seats stood bare and silent. Admiral Grawl and the other leaders had been arrested. Their ships had been captured. Their empire was already beginning to fall. High Counselor rose from his chair. His silver body seemed older than before, weaker. His blue eyes were filled with shame and sorrow. "We gather here today," he began, "because we failed. I failed. This council failed. For 20 years we believed lies. We trusted criminals. We prepared to destroy an innocent species. We were ready to become murderers." The hall was completely silent. Every being listened to every word. "The evidence presented by Commander is beyond all doubt. The Empire planned and executed attacks against 47 different species over 2 decades. Each time, they made it appear that humans were responsible. They bribed our investigators. They manipulated our laws. They killed millions of innocent beings to serve their own fear and hatred." A wave of angry whispers moved through the hall. Representatives looked at each other with shame and fury. They had almost committed a terrible crime. They had almost destroyed humanity because of lies. "But before we decide what to do about the," High Counselor continued, "we must first address the species we wronged. Ambassador, please step forward." Walked to the edge of the platform and looked up at the High Counselor. "On behalf of this council, and on behalf of every species in the Galactic Union, I offer you our deepest and most humble apology. We accused you without proper investigation. We ignored your protests of innocence. We almost destroyed your world and your people because we were too blind and too foolish to see the truth." Nodded slowly. "I accept your apology, High Counselor, but words alone cannot heal the wounds of 20 years. They killed millions. They destroyed 12 entire species. Innocent beings died because of their lies. There must be justice." "There will be," High Counselor said. "I promise you that, but first I have something to say to this council." He turned to face the hundreds of representatives behind him. His old body seemed to gather strength from somewhere deep inside. His voice grew stronger. "For 10,000 years, this council has worked to build peace among the stars. We have ended wars. We have protected the weak. We have created laws that every species must follow. We believed that these laws would keep us safe. We believed that no one would dare to abuse our trust." He paused. His blue eyes swept across the hall. "We were wrong. They made fools of us. They hid behind our laws while they committed murder. They used our love of peace as a weapon against the innocent. They laughed at our trust and our honor." His voice rose to a thunderous roar. "No more. Today I stand before you and I say, enough." The word echoed through the great hall like a bomb. Every being in the room felt it shake their bones. Enough lies, enough manipulation, enough hiding behind rules while innocents die. From this day forward, no species will ever again use this council to attack the blameless. The thought we were too weak to stop them, the thought we would never discover the truth, they were wrong. A roar of approval rose from the representatives. Species that had once hated humanity were now standing and cheering. They slapped their tanks until the water splashed over the edges. The thorns stomped their feet until the floor cracked. The bright ones sang songs of celebration and justice. High Counselor raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador, humanity has been treated as an enemy for 20 years. That ends today." He lifted an ancient scroll made of strange metal, the most sacred object the council possessed. "By the power granted to me by this council, I declare humanity to be a protected ally of the Galactic Union. Any attack on Earth or her colonies will be considered an attack on every member species. Any threat against your people will be answered by the full power of this council." More cheering filled the hall. Felt tears building in his eyes. He forced them back. "As for the," High Counselor continued, "they will face the harshest punishment our laws allow. The Empire is hereby dissolved. Their military will be dismantled. Their leaders will stand trial for crimes against the galaxy. Their colonies will be placed under council supervision." "What about their people?" someone called from the hall. "What about ordinary citizens who did not know about the crimes?" High Counselor shook his head firmly. "The common are not guilty, only their leaders. We will not punish children for the sins of their parents. We will not become the monsters we defeated. The ordinary will be allowed to live in peace, as long as they accept the new laws and reject the hatred of the past. Commander stepped forward. "High Counselor, may I speak?" "You may." 12 of my pilots gave their lives to bring the truth to the galaxy. They flew into certain death so that the resolve could escape with the evidence. They knew they would not survive. They went anyway. Her voice cracked slightly. "I want their sacrifice to be remembered. I want their names to live forever." High Counselor bowed his silver head. "Commander, your pilots will be honored as heroes of the Galactic Union. Their names will be carved into the walls of this great hall. Every species will remember them. Every generation will learn their story. They died not only for humanity, but for truth itself." Behind, the families of the dead pilots wept. Some wept with grief for their lost loved ones. Some wept with pride for what they had accomplished. Most wept with both. The session continued for many more hours. Details were discussed. Plans were made. Laws were written, but the important work was already done. Humanity was saved. They were defeated. The galaxy would never forget this day. When the session finally ended, walked out of the great hall with beside him. Outside, thousands of beings from hundreds of species were waiting. When they saw the two humans, they began to cheer wildly. A reporter pushed through the crowd. "Ambassador, how does it feel to save your entire species?" Smiled and shook his head. "I did not save anyone. Commander did, her crew did. The 12 pilots who gave their lives did. I only talked. They acted." Put her hand on his shoulder. "You gave us hope when we had none. You made a plan when escape seemed impossible. Without you, we would have died at Station 7, and the truth would have died with us." Above them, the stars shone cold and bright. Somewhere out there, Earth was waiting. 8 billion people were celebrating. And across the galaxy, species that had once feared humanity were learning a lesson they would never forget. Humans never give up. Humans never surrender. Even when the whole universe turns against them, humans find a way. And that makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The most dangerous, and perhaps the most noble. 1 year had passed since the day the Galactic Council declared, "Enough." In that single year, the galaxy had changed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. The Empire was gone. Its leaders sat in prison cells, waiting for trials that would last for decades. Its military had been broken into pieces and scattered to the winds. Its colonies were slowly learning to govern themselves under council supervision. The once proud empire had become a warning to others. This is what happens when you choose hatred over peace. Humanity, meanwhile, had risen higher than ever before. New alliances had formed with dozens of species. New trade routes had opened across the galaxy. New respect had replaced the old fear. Humans were no longer seen as dangerous invaders. They were seen as survivors, as fighters, as the species that had faced destruction and refused to accept it. On Earth, the changes were smaller but no less important. Schools taught children about the 12 pilots who had given their lives at Station 7. Parks and streets were named after Commander and Ambassador. Every year, on the anniversary of the broadcast, people around the world stopped what they were doing and observed a moment of silence. Stood at the window of his apartment in Seoul and watched the city below. It was a beautiful autumn day. Red and gold leaves covered the ground like a carpet. People walked through the streets, living their normal lives, unaware of how close they had come to losing everything. He was retired now. After saving humanity, he had decided that he had done enough. His doctors had insisted. His family had insisted. Even the government had insisted. So he had put away his diplomatic uniform and learned how to be a normal person again. It was harder than he had expected. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Admiral standing in the hallway. She had changed in the past year. Her uniform was covered with medals now, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who commanded entire fleets. But her eyes were still the same, sharp, intelligent, and surprisingly warm. "Ambassador," she said, I hope I am not disturbing you." "You never need to call me ambassador anymore," replied with a smile. "I am just now, and please come in." They sat in his small living room and drank tea together. They talked about small things at first: the weather, old friends, new buildings being constructed in the city. It was the kind of conversation that people have when they share a bond deeper than words can express. Finally, reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. She placed it on the table between them. "What is this?" asked. "A gift from the council." He opened the box. Inside was a metal unlike any he had ever seen. It was made of gold and silver woven together, shaped like a human hand reaching toward the stars. On the back, words were carved in 12 different languages. He read the human words: for service beyond measure, for courage beyond question, for saving the future of all humanity. "Only 2 of these medals exist in the entire galaxy," said. "One for you and one for me. High Counselor designed them himself before he died." Touched the medal gently. "I heard about his death. He was old even for his species. He lived long enough to see justice done. That was important to him." Paused. "Before he died, he wrote a book about everything that happened. The conspiracy, the cover-up, how you refused to give up when everyone else had surrendered hope. He wanted future generations to learn from our mistakes. And from our victories. Those 2. Put the medal back in its box. What happened to the ordinary people, not the leaders?" His expression became thoughtful. "They are rebuilding, slowly. The council placed them under supervision for 50 years. After that, they can apply to rejoin the Galactic Union as a new nation." "Do you think they will?" "Maybe. The young are different from their parents. They grew up knowing what their leaders did. Most of them are ashamed. Some of them helped us find hidden evidence against the old government." She looked out the window at the falling leaves. "I think, in time, they could become good members of the galactic community, if we give them the chance." Nodded slowly. "That is what makes us different from they saw a threat and tried to destroy it. We see a problem and try to fix it. We believe that people can change. Even after everything they did to us. Especially after everything they did to us. If we become like our enemies, we become worse than them. The whole point of surviving is to be better than the people who tried to kill us." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The afternoon light painted golden patterns on the floor. "There is another reason I came today," finally said. "The council is building a memorial at Station 7. They are going to preserve the old station exactly as it is, broken and forgotten, as a reminder of where we made our stand. But they want to add something new, a monument to the 12 pilots who died there." "That sounds appropriate." "They asked me to write the words that will be carved on the monument, but I cannot do it alone." She looked at him with steady eyes. "I was hoping you would help me." Was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to his desk. He picked up a pen and a piece of paper. For several minutes, he simply sat and thought, remembering the faces of those brave pilots, remembering the moment when they had launched their fighters into certain death. Then he began to write. When he finished, he handed the paper to. She read it slowly, and tears began to fall from her eyes. The words were simple and clear. Here at the edge of darkness, 12 humans chose death so that others might live. They were not seeking glory. They were not looking for fame. They were ordinary people who faced an impossible choice and chose to sacrifice everything for the truth. They gave their lives so that humanity could survive. They fell so that their families could stand. Let all who pass this place remember their lesson. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that something else is more important than fear. These 12 found something more important. May we all be worthy of their gift. It is perfect, whispered. Looked out the window at the setting sun. The sky was painted with colors of gold and red and purple. When I was young, he said quietly, I never imagined I would do anything important. I was just a boy from a small town who liked to read books. I never dreamed I would stand before the Galactic Council. I never thought I would help save my species from extinction. And now I understand something important. You do not need to be special to change the universe. You do not need to be chosen by destiny. You just need to be brave enough to stand up when everyone else sits down, and stubborn enough to keep standing no matter how hard they try to push you down. Stood and walked to the window beside him. Together, they watched the last light of day fade into darkness. "What will you do now?" she asked, "with the rest of your life?" Smiled. "I think I will teach. Young people need to learn what I have learned. How to talk, how to listen, how to find solutions when there seem to be none. Maybe one of them will face a crisis like ours someday, and maybe they will remember something I taught them. And if the galaxy is ever threatened again, then we will face it together, humanity and our allies. We are stronger now than we have ever been." He turned to look at her, not because we have more ships or bigger weapons, but because we proved something important about ourselves. "What is that?" "That we deserve our place among the stars. That when everything seems hopeless, humans find a way forward. That we never give up, never surrender, never stop fighting for what we believe in." Outside, the stars were appearing one by one in the darkening sky, billions of lights in the endless darkness. And on thousands of worlds across the galaxy, parents were telling their children the story of the day the council said enough. It was a story that would be told for 1,000 generations. The story of how humanity faced extinction and refused to die. The story of 12 pilots who gave everything for the truth. The story of an ambassador who never stopped believing. And it was only the beginning of what humanity would achieve among the stars.